Dancing.
Down at Blake Hall. That was the half a crown, 2 and 6pence hop Saturday
I'll
night.
go and ask that lovely sailor to have a dance.
Welcome to the Wild Dispatch.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Wild Dispatch. I'm Robin and I'm back with more skills and stories from the wild. So we have 2 returning guests today. Nana and Gramps are back with a vengeance. I enjoy chatting with them so much. I had to go back the next day and talk to them, so I thought it would be good to split this into a couple of episodes. Yeah, and the story continues. We have a bunch of tales from their experiences growing up in times that are so different from now. If you didn't hear the first episode, then I suggest you go back and have a listen so that you can get a bit of context all the way back to the beginning of the 1930s, which is astounding, really, given that it's 2025. There's also a special reason why this episode is coming out today. This week, Nana will be 97 years old. So here's a very special congratulations to you, Nana. I hope that you are having a special day. I'm sorry that I can't be over there in England to celebrate with you. But I will endeavour to get back over there and come and say hello in the West Country and have a good old chit-chat about everything that's been going on. I also want to take a minute to say, if you're new to the podcast, then welcome. Thanks for hopping aboard. If you've been listening for a while and you've been enjoying the stories and skills, then thank you. As usual, I will say, please do all the things that people who enjoy podcasts do. Give the show a follow, set to automatic downloads, leave a nice review if you're feeling generous, even sling it over to someone who you think would enjoy the stuff that we talk about on this show. Right, that's quite enough waffling from me. There's not much more to say than sit down and enjoy this story from 2 very wise and very West Country. Well, I guess Nana's East London still. All right, on with the show.
That'll be fine like that, I think. That'll be much better.
I said, keep it out by this glass as well, right?
Okay, let's put that there. Okay, so I have a pen. Have everything. Battery's looking good at the moment. Okay, I made a couple of notes this morning as well. Other things, but was there anything that on your mind that we were talking about yesterday that you wanted, that you remember from what we were talking about yesterday? You thought, oh, I should have said that, or
I never thought of anything about yesterday. Just one thing I mentioned, I thought was worth mentioning. When I was a kiddie, the midwife came around.
yeah.
And I was with one of my little mates, obviously, and when the nurse went indoors, we went and walked all round the bike, and I can remember talking to her saying, I wonder where they keep the baby. Because we were told the midwife, that she brings the baby.
Oh, the midwife always came on a push bike.
And I thought, since that programme was
Yeah.
a modern one,
Yeah.
I can remember saying that with my mate. I wonder where they keep the baby.
So you think that they're like a baby delivery service?
Well,
literally, but no.
yeah, we were told the nurse.
They usually had a bag or a box on a carrier.
A black box.
Yeah.
A black box was on
I'm just
there.
going to close this up because I could hear some noise. Okay, so we're in a different location now, I should add as well. We've changed spots, so the sound might be a little bit different. But I'm trying to think where we left off before. We just started talking about the war.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, we just started talking about the war. And I got a question. I mean, I heard a few things. I heard some great stories, Gramps, the stories of you finding munitions and making fireworks and blowing up walls and all kinds of stuff like that. And I also talked about like the evacuation and moving over to Somerset, and lots of other things like that. We're going to hear some bells now because it's Sunday and the church bells are going to go.
Oh.
But It's only light, so it should be fine. But what I wanted to ask is, I remember you saying about the gas masks and kind of being given that stuff quite early on. Mm-hmm. But do you remember like the first day that the war was announced?
Yeah.
Can you tell me what happened that day?
Well, I can't tell you much about that because I was evacuated on the Friday.
Okay.
And children weren't told of things like that.
Yeah.
So I can't tell you what the...
Okay.
They never worried children.
So it wasn't like on the radio or you didn't...
Well, I can't remember anything about it.
There was no distinct moment that you remember?
No.
Do you remember anything about it, Gramps? Or was it just...
I can remember exactly what, when war was declared, because my mother and the neighbour from each side was on our doorstep.
Okay.
Talking about it. Now I was 9 years... Was I 9 years old?
31. So you were 8 years old.
8 or 9 years old. When that was taking place.
Oh.
And one side was Mrs. Eads and the other side was Mrs. Breyer. And I don't know if I came from outside or from inside the house, but the three of them were talking, and I said, I got something interesting, or something like that. And short trousers, I had a wart there.
On your leg, on your thigh?
Yeah. And I said, look at this. And Mrs. Breyer said, I wonder what he was going to show us. It didn't register on me at the time, but afterwards it did.
So they're having a conversation.
That was the day war broke out.
And you're like, forget the war.
Yeah. Well, that didn't bother me.
But I didn't have any memories of...
No.
That's the only thing I can remember.
The only thing is, the hall we were in, where they were going to pick us up from, because that was the Friday before the war started.
Okay.
There were soldiers doing a run alongside the hall, outside, and we were stood at the window watching them, and they were doing bayonet practice, running up and stabbing these dummies.
Were they?
Yeah, and we were all told to get down from the window. It's not for you to see.
Wow, and that was in the Limehouse, was it?
That was no. This was in. Oh, this was
in the West Country.
In the hall in Oxford.
Oh.
Waiting for people to come and pick children up.
Okay, that was in Oxford.
Was that soldiers or home guard? Was it?
I don't know soldiers as far as I was concerned, but they were all running up and taking it in turns to stick the bayonet in, until one of the women said, "Come on, get down from there," because it was up on a stage somewhere.
That must have been quite a sight, though.
Well, we thought, but of course they thought it was dreadful for children to see.
Yeah.
But there's nothing else I could say about that.
Yeah, I guess when you're a kid, you don't even really associate or understand what it is really that they're practicing.
I remember we got back, it was late at night, although we'd travelled from early in the morning, and this lady was a nice young newlywed, you see, and she looked at us well dressed, and Mother had bought us boots, knee-high boots. She sent us off with all new stuff for the winter, all the clothing and that. And as we took the boots off, we had all black in our toes, like sweat.
Yeah.
Because we'd have been in them since about 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And how dreadful, she said, so dirty. And I always remember saying, my mum gave us a bath this morning. Well, she said, you need another one now. And she made us have another bath. And I thought, well, that was a bit much.
2 baths in one day.
Little things with kids, isn't it?
How often would you normally bath at that time?
Oh, well, we only had a bath once a week.
Yeah, once a week, so 2 in one day.
Yeah, that was a big thing to have your baths.
2 in
but
one
anyway,
day.
that, I can't remember much else not at that time.
Yeah.
But what we did is we took the schools had to give up their children for half a day, and the evacuees done a morning or an afternoon, and I think each week they alternated it. And then the teachers took us out walking wherever we could go to see something.
Okay. So they were doing things to kind of keep you interested.
Yeah.
So, have you got any? I mean, you mentioned it before a little bit, but that time when you were out in the countryside, there were lots of soldiers around. I mean, I don't mean in Oxford. I mean down in when you're in Somerset and in Street. Well, like, obviously that's in Somerset as well. Bridgewater, or was it Bridgewater that you were in the area as well?
No. I was in Oxford then.
No, I know, but I mean later on.
Later on, no. I stayed down at Bordrick, the other side of Taunton.
Okay.
I was down there for over a year.
Oh, so that's in Devon, right?
Next to Devon, yeah.
Next to Devon, okay.
We were out really in the sticks because even the pub had somewhere to bridle the horses when they went into the pub. Oh, yeah.
I think that's like hang the rope. The bridling the horses is when you hang the little painter, right? Like the front.
Well, there was just hooks for them to hook the
horse up.
It was just a very small village, and perhaps 2 or 3 double house cottages, and there wasn't much going on, and a couple of farms. So we were really out in the sticks, and we took you out there to see it, didn't we?
We went there,
Jacqueline
and Kevin.
Oh, this is just
to see where I was.
And those horse rings were still there.
How many years ago was that?
Oh,
20 years ago or something.
Yeah.
1940.
Okay.
But
No, not when we went there with Jacqueline.
no, she.
That would have been about
15 years
15
ago.
years, something like that.
About
15
15 years
years
ago.
Mm.
And what it was, there was a pub, and the pub had served little sweets, just 2 or 3 for the kids to go in and get a sweet. And we used to go to the farm and get the milk in a jug.
Oh, yeah?
So, and when we arrived, though, we were taken out by coach to go around, and the lady at the manor house, she had us all there in her garden. Cottay Manor was near as well. We went there for Christmas, to a Christmas party. Have you ever heard of Cottay Manor?
No.
Well, that is the other side of Taunton.
Okay.
And I've even been there with WWII.
Okay.
But we had, they had us in a great big kitchen with a great big table and give the kids a nice Christmas, gave us a nice Christmas.
Nice. So there were a few like big houses and you could go around those places.
Oh, no, we didn't go anywhere.
No.
Didn't go, no. It was only down to the crossroads where there was a church made into a classroom. And they came from all around, it wasn't close by.
Oh, okay. And where at this time when you were there many soldiers around as well? No,
we didn't see much about the services.
You didn't see people.
No, really. I suppose that's all going abroad, and
They wouldn't have been out where you were they?
no. And I think everything was happening in France at that time.
At that time.
Violet was out in the wilds.
So where you told me before about because I've heard this story before, but I'd love to hear it again. That time that you said that there was a field and it was like some for Dig for Victory and some for all
that
the
was
soldiers.
in Bridgewater.
That was in Bridgewater.
That was the park.
So was that later or earlier?
Oh no, we came straight down. They started digging for Victory straight away.
No, you came back to I mean, you were out in the country. You came back to Bridgewater when they all came down from London.
That's right.
That's after that.
Perhaps I should go on to Mum with her house. Dad was a foreman and putting up air raid shelters in people who didn't have a garden. If you had a garden, you were given the makings to make corrugated
Anderson
iron.
shelter.
Oh,
Anderson shelter.
Okay.
And I should go really on to. We'd been to London, and then we were gone off down to Somerset.
Okay.
Because we came. Wait a minute. Christmas. We came back just after Christmas from Oxford.
Yeah.
Stayed in London until June, when we were evacuated to Somerset.
Yes.
I went into the country.
The wild.
And in September, suddenly, I turned up at this gate with all my family. And turned up and said, well, we'd been to see what they could do for us. And they said, have you got anyone in the countryside? They said, then go to them and let them look after you. And that was all my mum and dad knew.
Okay.
And they turned up from London, you can imagine, in this place, two cottages. And you know, that woman took all my family in. They were very big rooms, don't get me wrong, and lots of space, but all my family stayed. There was Mum, Dad, Fran, Bert, Hilda, Maud, Lily, Bert. All turned up. That poor lady, all on her own with Louis and me, put all the family up. And they stayed like that till, I think, November.
Wow.
She was a brick. So anyway, what happened then, Dad left us there after a couple of days, and him and Bert went to London, back to London, said, we'll go to work.
And Bert's your brother, right?
Oh, not Bert, my brother-in-law.
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 Fran's husband.
Okay.
We had 3 Berts.
Okay.
And so they went back to work. And after a while, they came back one morning and said, the factory has been bombed. Dad had had a job and he couldn't take any more because said he was sweeping up parts of bodies and things like that.
Wow.
And so he came down, and Bert and Dad, that's Bert, my brother-in-law, and Dad, they went to Bridgewater to find work. Found this place that was a converted milk shed, and if you could imagine, it was split exactly 6 foot, the size of a bed.
Yeah.
And it was made into 4 pieces. There was the 3 girls slept in the front, and all it was a thin plank of wood between,
Yeah.
between each room. 1 path right down to the end. There was the 3 girls, the first one, Mum, Dad, and Albert, my little brother, slept in the next one. And in the next one, in a single bed, and I mean a single bed, Fran and Bert, that was their bed. They had 1 little cabinet beside the bed, and the rest of their room was a cooker, and you know the old, we had one, what you boiled your washing in?
Copper.
Copper.
Copper that we talked about
That was
before.
one that you could move, an electric copper.
Okay.
And it was a door out
An
the
electric
back.
one?
Oh yeah, it would have been an electric. I'm sure.
Water.
I don't know, love. You've made me wonder. I don't know. And there was the door opening out because you could go out the yard to a toilet. And then that was Franz and Bert, and Mum done all the cooking and laying out on that little bit.
Yeah.
And then on the last one, it was a table and chair, what you see in a pub. The stools, the seats, was 1 seat there, the table, another seat there. There was a little fire in the corner, and Dad had a small armchair in that corner by the fire. Mum was a brick because everybody was working different shifts. Some on day work, different shifts with them all going out to work, and Mum kept everybody going, and she was a brick.
Wow.
That wasn't easy. Oh, and we eventually, the lady next door said to Mum, if you let your 2 girls come down and put a bed in my front room, she said they can sleep in there. So Louis came down and I much later, and we had a bed in the lady next door's front room. We went in there last thing at night and came back in the morning. We didn't do anything else then other than sleep.
Wow. It sounds like
And
you
we,
were tightly packed in there.
they had it rough. Mum coped.
Yeah.
I
So
felt I had to say something because Mum was just good.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, it sounds like a lot.
Oh, we had each bed had curtains about 18 inches away from the bed, and then there was a path with the front door opened onto that,
Yeah.
and just walked through.
Yeah. And how long? So it was nice that you could all be together, though. I guess.
Oh,
that was a nice thing.
Yeah, and we stayed there like that for a year, just over a year. So
A year.
yeah, they lived like that.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds wild. Do you remember there being much activity, like planes flying over? I remember you telling me a bit before.
Don't remember saying. I remember one night there was a plane going around and around. The air raid sign was on, and you could hear it going round and round. Eventually, it did crash when we were there.
Oh, did it?
But we didn't know anything about that. They didn't tell you anything.
Yeah.
I
You
can
just
remember
heard
them.
the noise and no one explained what was going on.
I can remember 2 or 3 times if a plane, once with a plane coming over Bridgewater, and it was going around and around, and all the searchlights were on. About 5 or 6 searchlights were hitting the sky, trying to catch him. Did you ever see the searchlights looking for a plane?
No. They were looking for the ROF at Puritan.
Okay. What does ROF or RAF?
ROF,
What does that mean?
Royal Ordnance Factory. They had to make all the explosives there. Mainly they did torpedoes and depth charges. But that was a Royal Ordnance Factory, and that was on the northern slopes of the Podens, and that's what they were searching for.
So the bombers were looking for that.
Yeah, they never found it.
They didn't find it.
No.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And you also said, Gramps, that you told me before about being hidden in hedges and watching planes flying over. Can you tell me about that? So where were you when that happened?
Where were we?
So what area were you in?
Oh, that street down between Street and Glastonbury.
Okay. What planes were you watching?
Dogfights.
You were watching dogfights.
Oh yeah.
So if you heard the sirens going off, you were supposed to be running to the shelters, but you would
We'd hop on our bike and get down on the moor.
So instead of going to
No buildings obstructed us down there.
So
We had no fear of anything.
no, so
We
you
just stayed indoors when the siren went.
oh, you didn't go in the shelter.
Oh, we didn't have a shelter to go in.
Okay.
Not down here.
No, not in the countryside. There were no shelters.
We had an Anderson shelter
Okay.
that we built, but I think we only used it twice.
You only used it twice.
Too damn uncomfortable.
So tell me, what planes you were watching the dogfights? Was that with your friends as well? You just go off and
Yeah. Paul Van Rynen and myself. His brother Albert was an airborne, paratrooper,
okay.
and he was parachuted in. Well, we don't know. They never found out how he died, but either his plane was hit, or the Germans had flooded back of the beaches, made it all boggy, and they went down with about 120 pounds of equipment. And if they landed in that, they were drowned. Wow. So they don't know how he died, but he died on D-Day. His older brother,
Wow.
Paul. But when we went down the moor, the things we saw down there was a glider crashed, and I found a shoe, picked the shoe up, there was a foot in it.
Really?
And I told you about the lad that was walking off, pushing his bike back with a German machine gun on, and the copper said to him, "You don't want that, son." I do.
So a full-size machine gun, like
Yeah, well,
From
their
planes?
machine guns were 7.5 mil, I think.
Wow. So a kid's just slung that on his handlebars.
Yeah, well, he just balancing on his handlebars, pushing the thing.
The great big machine gun.
Yeah.
Do you remember anything else from that time watching those gunfights? So you saw it happening, and you see planes crashing. And
Yeah.
you saw that all happening.
Well, a lot of them would go down the Bristol Channel, but some, well, quite a few landed on the moor. There were the ones I saw of ours was a Hurricane and a Spitfire, different times, but they crashed. But the pilots got out. The crash landed,
Okay.
rather than crashed. But that was the only flat area, you see, that they could see a chance of landing without killing themselves.
Yes. So they did actually manage to land.
Oh, yeah.
And you remember you saying you stayed with one and took him back to town, and you didn't sound very happy.
Yeah, he was cussing all the way. That one, I only threw the letter out the other day. Paul sent me this letter, and it had a newspaper cutting in there about the two boys who escorted the pilot into the police station or something, you know.
And that was you.
Yeah, Paul and I, yeah.
Okay.
I'd forgotten it, actually.
It's funny you say that. So, but the person who'd survived, he sounded more annoyed that he'd been shot
Oh, he
down
was.
than,
He was.
than grateful that he survived. Like,
Yeah, he was annoyed because he got shot down. They hit his engine, and that's what he was annoyed about, rather than he was out of it and he didn't like it.
But I'll tell you what I should mention while we're at this stage of the war.
Yeah.
Did you want to put in about my sisters, the jobs they done?
Yes, please.
I mean, I'll say that quickly because
Let's do it. Yeah.
you know, they're Fran, the eldest one, they were presented with overalls because women never wore overalls in those days.
What were they wearing before? Skirts.
Oh no, just dresses.
Dresses.
Sure.
You didn't wear anything other than dresses or skirts. But the thing is, they were put out on the Western Island Aerodrome, and they dug up for the runways. They were in groups of 6. One of them was a man who was in charge, but they actually dug up for I suppose that was put
The
concrete
footings.
down. I don't know, but she done that. When they'd done the runway, got finished there, she was put around the army depot, so that moving equipment and stuff around. Maud was put in. She started off with cellophane in an office job, and she remembers being told she hadn't worn stockings, and she said, we like to be a little bit presentable, so until she explained that they were bombed out and had nothing, and they changed the rules that the ladies didn't have to wear stockings because they're hard to get by.
Yes.
And then she was moved to work on planes down Bristol Road, and she was also in that factory. She helped with the fire service, and they'd done that and done lots of competitions between the different factories. So she was working for that as well, and later on she had to move to Cheltenham.
Okay.
And she was over 21, you see. And my dad went up to the Labour office and said, my girl's not going out on their own. She said, you've got no choice, she's more than 21. And Maud had to go and work on dashboard equipment for planes.
Okay.
All that sort of thing. So that was what she done after the planes. She helped on the equipment at Cheltenham. Hilda worked at the ROF factory, and her job was loading the cases of dynamite, I suppose, whatever, I know she used to say, but having to be careful of things like that.
So just handling explosives.
Yes. And Lily, she had to go, she was only 16, and she had to go and work in cellophane. And she didn't like a job because it was counting cellophane.
Okay.
So that's covered that.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't working first of all.
You weren't working at that point?
Not there. But I went on then, and I started in an office and then moved over and was the cashier in a butcher shop.
Yes.
And learned all I could about butchers. So that's finished it. We got that down in.
Well, you said that, right? But you told me a little bit about this yesterday, but I'd love to hear it again. So you said you were in an office at first, and then you moved to a butchery shop, and you learned quite a lot about processing butchery animals, and they actually let you use some of the equipment, right?
Yeah.
So tell me a bit about that.
Well, there was nothing spare in the shop because everything was rationed.
Yeah.
You only had your rations. There was the main chap that had been given the job because the owner had been put in the services, and Jack wasn't very keen on doing any more than he had to. He done what he had to, but in all fairness, he only had a bicycle where Mrs. Pole said her husband would have been out around farms getting what he could. He had a car to do it.
So this was the
Jack,
previous owner?
Yeah, that was the owner.
Okay.
And
but
he was now in the service.
He was in the military?
Yeah.
Okay.
He was a cook. He stayed as a cook here because he done lots of cooking with his shop, you see.
Oh.
So...
RAF you did, wasn't
Yeah.
So he was a cook in the RAF, so
yeah,
then someone had to take over the butchery.
That's right. So Jack done it, but he was getting on, and I think it was... He couldn't see where he could do... He worked, don't get me wrong, I don't want to say the wrong thing about the man, but I think with somebody younger, they would have got out and scrounged.
Foraged.
Yeah, you
yeah,
see.
Yeah.
I used to always help with the sausages. That was Monday because there wasn't much doing. You see, people couldn't just come and buy meat. They were only entitled to their ration.
Yeah.
The ration was a shilling's worth of meat a person.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay, we can grab it. It's fine. I can edit a bit out anyway.
I just want the ball.
Here you go.
Just doing the stretch, thank you.
Okay.
Shilling's worth of meat, and
Hang on. Okay, so it was
the
Monday, as you
meat
said.
ration was a shilling.
Okay.
A shilling's worth of meat, and if you wanted more expensive cut, you didn't get so much for your money because that was theory, you see.
Yes, yeah.
And corned beef, you were allowed 2 pence of corned beef, which was 4 ounces.
Per person.
Everybody had that.
Was that every day or was that each week?
Oh no, that
or
was every week.
once a
Once
week.
a week.
Once
oh,
a week.
4 ounces of corned beef hash.
That's right. 4 ounces of corned beef and that. And bacon, I can't remember whether it was 2 or 3 ounces a week
Okay.
per person.
Yeah.
We didn't have anything else on ration there. And then if we got liver in, what we had by ABC, you could have a turn of having, if there was liver or hearts or offal.
Okay.
And you took it in turns with the alphabet.
Okay.
The bush radio would go into operation then. When the butcher got offal in, Gillet's got offal, Gillet's got liver.
Okay, the news would
Yeah.
spread
Yes,
But-
go around like wildfire.
But it
That.
was only they only got it with if their letter name. A lot of people didn't want liver. Isn't it
Oh,
funny?
really?
Yeah.
But you did.
Eh?
You did like it.
Oh, we had what we were given.
Did you have it in pies and things, or what? How did you?
Oh,
eat it?
we had what Mum put in front of us because we'd been brought up that way.
Yeah, yeah. But did she ever make? What did she make with it? Did she cook it in stews or
Oh,
in
Mum
pies
used to all
Faggots.
Okay.
yeah, faggots, fish.
Faggots.
We
And
never
that's like
worked out our fish.
That's like a meatball.
Meatball, yeah.
Okay.
That's like sage and onion, minced liver, and breadcrumbs
Yeah.
or
But
oatmeal if you could get it.
Mum was good at all that. Mum was good at all that.
mix it all up, make balls out of it, and cook it.
Yeah.
Sounds
delicious.
Very tasty.
Yeah, it sounds really good.
Yeah. I don't ever remember being hungry, being without.
Yeah. And so we're talking about jobs. Gramps, you said that you had a paper round for a while. That was all throughout the war as well? Oh, because you were a little bit younger, weren't you? So
Sorry?
You were a little bit younger. You were like a couple of years or 3 years younger at this time.
I was working from, well, when the Yanks, they built we had a playing field called Batch, Woods Batch in the street, a great big playing field. You all right?
Do you want a hand?
Starting field.
Yeah, have something.
Shall we carry on?
Yeah, go for it.
We had this big playing field, and they filled it up with nissen huts, and
what's that? Nissen huts?
Those you've seen the huts during the war, isn't it?
No.
Nissen huts. They're like
nissen
a
huts.
half moon.
Okay.
And that.
It's like a half moon hut.
Yeah.
Okay.
They were called nissen. N-I-S-S-E-N.
Okay.
Nissen huts.
Nissen huts. Okay.
Corrugated iron, and they had a PX. That was their shop.
Okay.
So we used to hang around the shop, the PX, for anything we could bum, like gum chum. And I had a bike I'd made from odd bits, and I used to rent that out to these Yanks. They would pay half a crown to have the, that's 2 shillings and 6pence.
Okay.
To have the bike and cycle around the area, and I made quite a killing on it. I was making money from about the age of 12 all the time. I had a paper round on once a week on Thursday evening. That was a local paper. I had the Sunday paper round, and that. I think I got 4 shillings for that. I can't remember exactly now. Then I done the coaches.
Yes,
so I was 16 when I started that. When I started work, I was good at art, and I got. I must have been recommended, and because Clark's took me in the pattern room.
She's just in there getting some water or something.
Oh.
All right.
All right, what?
Yeah, I'm all right. I just went to see if they were out there, what they were doing, but they've gone out.
Oh, Mum and Dad have gone for a walk for a bit.
I bet Annika's gone with her, is she?
She's just doing a bit of work. She's writing a contract up.
All right.
So you're saying about
The
working with the buses?
I'd hire a coach from Bonds. I would pay for a coach. When I started work, I went to the pattern room, which was designing and making patterns for high fashion shoes. Clark did a range. What was it called?
Skyline.
Skyline, and that was high fashion shoes.
Okay.
And what I was given was, it's pretty involved. A last.
Yes.
A wooden last.
It's like a wooden mould.
A mould, yeah.
Around, yeah.
And I'd make a pattern on that, and then cut patterns to suit. And I would have to get that shoe made, one shoe of each one. I'd do about 4 or 5, and they'd take them through the factory, getting the women that stitched them up, and get the shoe made, and that would go into the sample room. Once a month, and they would have a board meeting, and they would decide which ones they wanted to proceed with or alter or do it, and then I'd get perhaps back 1 or 2, and I'd have to alter it slightly, and that was quite interesting. So but anyway, I was
designing the shoe, like altering, tweaking, designing the shoe. That sounds
fun. When I came out of the Navy, well, I'll tell you about that later. So that that's how I knew people were fans of.
They would make all the patterns for the factory from what he done.
Really?
Well, when they decided on a line, they would do that from
They
that.
would use that.
He done the pattern.
And my brother was
cool.
he wasn't in the same department, but he was in the same department, but he was in a different shoe line.
Yes.
I was in the high fashion one, and he was in the everyday one, I suppose you'd call it, would you? Moonraker.
Is it worth you telling him that about the shoe place with this the hidey hole that you went in when you were a kid, or don't you want to mention that?
No, no point.
All right.
I've got to ask a question though, not about the hidey hole necessarily, if that's not something you want to tell a story about, but you were just saying about your business that you had.
Yeah.
Imagine you were a bit younger, renting out the bicycle that you made from parts. Can you remember the day that first happened? What gave you the idea for that moment? Did a soldier ask you to borrow the bike, or?
Probably. See, we'd hang around the PX because that's where we're likely to get some freebies. They wouldn't have called it that then, though. But anyway, that's where it would have started, and probably one of the Yanks would say, "Can I borrow your bike, son?" or something like that. I said, "Yeah, but you know."
Once he realised he could make some money, he offered it.
Yeah. Then I rented it out, and
so someone probably asked you if they could borrow your bike, and you're like, what's it going to cost? You know, this is what it's going to cost.
I don't remember exactly how it worked out, but I made money on it.
I love it. You told me some stories before I started recording about D-Day and the run-up to D-Day. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me about that? And I'd love to hear maybe first Nana and then maybe your side of things as well. Because you said that there are a lot of vehicles and there's a lot of build-up.
Yes. This all started very gradually, you see. The first Yanks came to Bridgewater just before Christmas, 43.
Okay.
42, 43. 42.
Okay.
42. And my dad invited some for Christmas dinner, you know. I expect he had his eye to the main chance, I don't know. But anyway, they were very good. And they kept coming in our place until they went. Now that was from the Christmas. But in the meantime, lots of things went on, building up slowly. So what was it you said to me?
So what was happening when you said it was when things were happening, building up slowly? What was changing?
Well, it just... the amount of people, the amount of traffic and that, which was all army.
Okay.
There was convoys going through every day.
And you see...
Americans.
Then,
lots of Americans.
And British. Yeah.
And British.
A lot, yeah.
Oh, things... You just said that went through, and you just took it all as an everyday thing, something different.
Yeah.
I can remember a load of... Oh.
Nothing was built up with because something was always going on.
It was just
I remember seeing a load of barges, infantry landing craft, the small ones, going through on trucks.
Oh, just being transported to the coast.
Yeah. Well, we didn't know what they were doing, but you could guess that.
Bert was always, every time he was asked what he'd done at work, he said made Bailey bridges. Can't go wrong saying making Bailey bridges, I suppose. But whether he was a welder.
Okay.
And
so he probably was making Bailey bridges.
He probably done that.
Cellophane, they turned over part of cellophane.
But I don't think people were easy to talk, if you understand.
They didn't tell you everything.
I don't think people
posters all over the place, wasn't there? Talk cost lives and things like that. Careless talk cost lives.
I think people were careful.
Yes.
It is certain. I'm not saying they didn't talk about anything, but they were careful.
And why were they careful?
Well, because of the war.
There was a war on.
But it's like, there are spies around, or what's the?
Well, possibly.
It's always.
You have to assume that.
Always if your man's gonna be a spy, you tell him to say Wendell
Wilkie.
And if he says
Wendell Wilkie, you know he's a
spy. So there was all that going on. No, people...
They can't pronounce their W's.
People were careful.
Oh, and they were dressed as nuns wearing checking they got jackboots off.
No, you got all that.
In nuns' habits.
It sounds like...
But
sounds
you
like
can't say big things happened because things were happening all the time.
Yeah.
And it just built up very gradually.
So it was building up gradually, but there was that moment that was the night before.
Yeah, it disappeared overnight.
The thing is, I told you, those first Yanks came there, the end of 42.
Okay.
42.
Yeah.
That's right, 42.
42.
The next big thing that we saw and understood was all these Yanks come and parked in the playing field, huge number of tents. And what they done, there was a supplier who got out of business with things changing with the food. Oppositely park was this big place that had been a warehouse for food.
Okay.
And the Yanks all went there for their meals.
Okay.
You see, they stayed there, it must have been more than 6 months. And we took no notice, they were always about, they were always there. And then on the Saturday morning, suddenly we went out there and they were all gone overnight, and we'd never known anything was going on, and they were all gone, all of them. And then we said, something's going to happen now. You know, so all the troops had gone.
Yeah, just vanished.
And that's it. And so then it took 3 days, because it was the Tuesday morning that we knew something. Oh, no, then the Monday night was the night when the planes went over. There was 3 layers of planes.
Waves.
And for the very first night, we had all the lights on. And that's the first time from the war that they had the lights on. But all these planes were lit up. So because there were so many of them.
So normally when planes fly over, they have all their lights off. You're saying? So the planes had their lights on, you're saying?
No, the planes had their lights on. Always we got the bombers going over, because a lot of bombing went out.
Yes.
And every night the planes went over and there wasn't a light there.
Okay.
It was only because we had control of the air and there wasn't.
Yes.
There was no reason not to have the lights on over England, but there was a high risk of collision.
Yes. So
that's why all the lights would have been on.
But you imagine 3 layers of planes were going over there, and it was quite low to start with.
Yeah.
Because we were just looking at them through our window and could see it. And the fact that the lights were on made everybody look.
Yeah.
But we knew then something was... You knew, but you didn't know what was happening.
Yeah. And how long were you watching these planes go by?
Oh, well, I watched him.
Hours.
I watched it until I nearly went asleep. Then I went to bed.
Wow. Just going...
It just went
hundreds
on
and
and
hundreds
on
and
and on.
hundreds of planes.
Yeah. And some were gliders. We could make that out. They were all marked. You could remember.
3 white lines on each wing.
They were all marked. But
it
it was quite something to see.
Yeah.
And anyway, we knew it went round till the Tuesday morning, and I've told you about that, haven't I?
Give me 1 second, I'm just going to pause this for a second. Okay, I might need to change the battery in a second. But go on. So,
the Tuesday morning...
all the planes were coming over, and all that was happening. And then
everybody
the next
was
day,
saying, you know... And I told you the weather was so that green and yellow, and everything was like somebody was waiting, and the weather didn't help.
So it was hanging in the air.
Yeah, everything was like something's about to happen, and somebody must have said something, because Jack went over to get a newspaper, and he brought it back, and it said in this newspaper that they'd landed.
Wow.
And that was the first I heard of people heard about
what
it.
What time in the morning was that?
And we knew that it was all going on. And that really and truly is how I remember.
Yeah, remember the whole
D-Day,
thing
yeah.
happening. Gramps, do you have any memories of that time?
Yeah, not in particular. We just lived it. I'll tell you, in the aftermath of the war, neither of us were actually involved in any bombing, but we had this flat in Plymouth when I was in the Navy, and it must have been coming up to Christmas. But anyway, we had decorations up, and one of the balloons exploded in the night,
Yeah.
and we were both out of bed on the floor.
Really?
Reflex.
I can remember when a plane went over low, Mrs. Newman, whose house was living in, she stayed in Plymouth all through the Blitz. And do you know, this plane went over at rooftop height, and do you know what she was under that table before I knew it.
Just across from where we were,
Yeah.
this place was on, what was it called? The road? Shrewsbury Terrace, wasn't it?
Yeah, Salisbury Terrace.
Salisbury Terrace. Just across from there, to the left were the docks, Devonport docks, down over the hill. The other side was St. Leven Road, which led to the docks, and that was obliterated, all that area with bombing.
Really?
Yeah, and it was still just heap of ruins.
Just rubble.
When we were there that was 1950.
Yeah, and I had a letter from 1952 then.
52.
I had a letter from my friend in London, and she said that something was exploded, and she said, and it was the rockets, when the rockets come over, because what they told everybody was that it was an explosion with gas explosion. That's what they said to start with, apparently. She said, but do you know, she said, it's only one bomb and it wipes out a whole block, she said.
That was the V2s.
V2s.
The intercontinental missile.
Yes. Okay, so this was earlier.
No, later.
No, this was
towards the end of the war.
This was
okay,
after the Christmas even, I think.
Okay. So those rockets were flying in and just levelling them.
They didn't see them because they came down from the stratosphere. No one could detect them before on the way.
Yeah.
And they would demolish virtually half a street. One bomb.
But she said the whole block would be gone.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds terrifying.
I think I've told you most of it. There's always little bits that you can think about.
Okay, well then I'll ask a couple more questions if that's all right. But first, I think I'm going to change these batteries just to make sure that I don't run out, because I don't want that. That would be a bad move. Give me a second.
I just think this.
What was it? Refugees, I keep saying.
Oh, evacuees.
Evacuees were built on us. I've been out conquering, getting conquers, and I had a jute sack with, there must have been 20 or 30 pounds of conkers in there.
Okay.
And I can remember coming in the back door and sweating because it was, it was a hot autumn, wasn't it? That 1939. We had a lovely summer, and I threw the bag down on the kitchen floor and said, God, I got some great conkers. And there was these three girls stood there. That was my introduction to our first evacuees. I was more interested in the conkers.
What did they say?
I expect they thought I was nuts. Probably. Yoko.
And you'd use those for playing conkers. How does the game of conkers work again? It's using string and conkers.
Yeah, yeah.
So, what's the rules of conkers?
You smash the other bloke's conker. And then it's their turn, you have to hold it up and then whack at your conker.
Okay.
And eventually the conker would split, one of the conkers would split. But sometimes you could get a real winner.
Okay.
I think I had one went 13 one time. I got 13 before it got beaten.
13 rounds.
Yeah.
I can tell you what I can see from you.
Yeah.
You've seen all these exciting bits that they show you time and time again.
Uh-huh.
And you think living it was all just excited, and it wasn't. It was natural, getting on with life.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but that's the thing, is it's those things that I want to hear as well.
Yeah.
It's the small
Yeah.
things that are happening every day, because that's what, like you say, that's what life's like, isn't it?
Another thing, when Ron and I, now that I was 9 and Ron was 11, my mother would give us, I think, 2 shilling piece each, and we had to go out to the shops and buy tinned veg.
Okay.
Anything we could get to go in the store cupboard. That must have been early on in the war.
So you just had to go on a mission to find
Yeah.
supplies.
Yeah.
And we had, but people used to come down visiting their kids, and someone came down to visit their kids, and we'd bring in another kid, and 2 kids or something. Anyway, the thing is, Mum said to this woman, "He can stay with us if you like, don't take him back to London." And he stayed with us, and you know, he was about 8 years old, and he couldn't write his name. And what we done, we wrote his name on the mirror. Oh, you always had a mirror over the mantelpiece.
Okay.
And we wrote this boy's name on the mirror, and every time he walked in, he had to, whoever was there made him spell his name. But anyway, when they came down to see him about 3 months later, his little brother who was with him said, "Come back with us, because I've got a nice brand new red car," because kids had red cars then.
Okay.
And you know, he took that boy into going back, and when Mum went up to school to let him know that he's gone back, he said, "What a shame, that boy's come on leaps and bounds in the last 3 months, where he hasn't done any of it there."
Yeah.
But he could read, because we made sure he could read. But
So-
see, all these things were going on.
Yeah.
And then I've not mentioned Tommy, Lenny, my cousin, who won the DFM.
What's the DFM?
Well, the
Distinguished Flying Medal.
And I've got the book home. There. And it was the most they done during the war in one time, wasn't it?
So
Shot up 7 planes.
They hedge hopped all the way to
Vienna.
and shot up an airfield and got 7 planes on the ground, and then hedge hopped all the way back in a Mosquito.
Oh, so what does hedge hop mean?
Oh,
Flying low.
Okay.
Hedge
hedge
hop.
Okay, so they were flying, but they were really
Low down, so they could get under radar.
Didn't want to be spotted.
So then they took down a lot of planes.
They done that. There's 2 planes went over, and they done what they wanted, marshalling yards in Vienna or something. They were doing it, and then they came back, and when they came back, that was the 9th of October, and by the 30th of October, he'd been shot down.
Oh, really?
He's killed. Yeah.
Killed.
We found his grave
but they did. Yeah, I've been out there and seen his grave.
Holstein.
Wow.
But I've purposely never said very much other than local, because the reason I felt was now was not the time to tell somebody who might have lost somebody at that time, but that was who done it.
Yes.
So I mean, I wouldn't sort of do that to anybody.
Yeah.
There's only 2 in a Mosquito, the pilot and the navigator air gunner. And Lenny was the navigator air gunner.
But also, before Lenny died, she lost. We won't be long, love. The Easter before the war started, Lenny's brother. You know, it goes.
It's okay.
It goes. Anyway, He got married.
Okay.
Him and his wife lived in London, and when the Blitz came, their house got a direct hit, and both of them died. So that was about 2 years later.
Wow.
That was about 2 years later. My gran was in the shelter out the back. The house was on fire. She ran through the house to get out. 2 days later, she died.
From burns?
So that's, no, not so much that, shock.
Shock?
Mm.
Wow.
But she died too, she come out all right, but the shock was there, and she died 2 days later. So you see,
wow.
lots and lots of things like that.
My grandmother, my maternal grandmother, lived in Bridgewater, in Albert Road, and there was her garden, and then you got to visualize it. They had what they call courts. It was like an alleyway between houses, and behind that would be like 5 cottages, 5 or 6 cottages, with one one sink and tap in the yard. There was no running water, or in a bothy down the bottom of the garden where you'd fill it up and then dig another hole and move the little hut over the top of it. But then it was their garden, then a bit of a field, and then the canal. And one day a German bomber dropped a landmine, what do they call it? It was like an enormous oil drum on parachute.
Okay.
And it dropped it, and it landed between the canal and her garden. And she was sitting in her rocking chair in the living room, and all the ceiling came down, plaster lath, and when the rescuers went in, she was sitting there cussing. So I can imagine what she was saying.
So the oil drum came down, but it didn't explode, right? It just.
Oh yeah, it exploded.
It exploded.
That's why her ceiling came down.
So everything came down from the explosion.
There must have been a lot of them must have had damage, but we only knew about Gran.
Wow, imagine.
Right.
So I've got a couple of little things, if you don't mind.
No,
we've got to
I'm
finish
thinking
up.
of being polite to Gillian, actually.
Oh, okay. Well, we've got to get some stories down. You were talking about, so I would love to, in a minute, I'll ask you about your memories of like Victory Day and that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But I think you said something about the girls' training corps.
Yeah, the things for girls, there was a girls' training corps. That was nice, because we had nice blue skull, what's these,
Cockade?
what's the one?
Berry?
A beret, like
Not the berry,
Glengarry.
one of those.
those hats.
And a blue tie and a blue jacket, white shirt, that sort of thing. And I used to belong to that.
Okay.
But we done it mainly because it was somewhere to go.
So, but you remember you saying there was like always teaching you stuff around the war, was it? Or was it nothing to do with the war?
Well, no, I think we were generally, I think they must have we had to learn to march and do things like that. Basic training, I suppose it would have been.
Like corps,
but I used to enjoy going there.
Cadet corps, really.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'd done 4 years in the TAs.
Okay.
And that was, I gave that up when I got married. So, it was always trying to find something. But to go back to the school, we were in a church for the school, and we'd go over the park to get some air. We'd go for an hour in the library to read books. It was all fitted in.
Yeah.
They just made it as where they could.
Yes.
And we just accepted that's what we were doing.
That was your new routine.
Yeah.
I've got a question you just made me think of. I'm hearing lots of stories from the both of you. And I want to hear about Victory Day. And I'll ask you about that. But what came first? Did you meet before Victory Day or was it after Victory Day? The two of you?
Oh, no, it was after Victory.
It was after.
No, a long time after.
Okay, so tell me about Victory Day first then.
Victory Day.
Don't remember much about that.
Well, VE Day, we didn't have to do very much because it was all very sudden.
Okay.
The war finished quick.
Did it?
And so we didn't make much of Victory Day. I think up the pubs they might have done.
Okay.
That was VE Day.
VE, that was VE Day.
The celebration was more on VJ Day.
But VJ Day, we planned that, and we just got together all up the end.
Street parties.
Street parties.
Okay.
And I've
Table
got a
and chairs
photograph
out in
that
the streets.
I've got a photograph that I've put online.
Have you?
Yes.
Oh, maybe if you can send me a link or send it to me somehow. Or
Yeah.
tell me where to look and I'll find it. That'd be good.
Oh, I put it on.
Put it on Facebook maybe.
No, well, I've put it on for the local area.
It's all good.
We're in a bit thin, aren't they?
No, they're fine.
No, so we did sort of celebrate that.
Okay.
But I can remember VE Day, a couple of days before I was in the cinema, and they put a notice on the screen that they'd signed an agreement. And I always remember, I'm very practical, I always remember they put the lights up and people were streaming out, not everybody. Some were like me, stayed there, nothing happened. All they're saying is that they've signed an agreement for something. And all these people went out, we stayed to watch the film, because there was nothing happened.
That was when the...
And it was all very quick to finish,
Yeah.
that there was no time for celebrations.
But the family, you were together with the family, but everyone must have been happy. You know?
Yeah, but I think the only thing there was pubs. And our family, all right, they went out to the pubs more then, but they weren't that way. If Lenny came home on leave, they always made a point of having a big thing there to keep him. And he would come home, we had a piano, and they'd always finish up having a sing-song downstairs. And then... and I always remember he came home and brought home Lily Marlene to us. He brought home the song Lily Marlene.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because he had it in the services. But he was a nice fellow.
How does that song go? Do you know?
Eh?
How do you remember? You said it's a song that he brought back. You said he brought back.
Well, yeah, they knew it in the services. The German song.
Oh, is it?
It's a German. Don't you know Lily Marlene?
No. How can you?
Underneath the lamplight by the barricade. Oh, I'm trying. I can't say it. No, it's a famous song.
Okay. I'm gonna
You look
it
for
up.
Lily Marlene on
Lily Marlene.
Lily Marlene.
Lily Marlene. Okay, I'm gonna
Yeah.
look it up.
But he brought that one home, and they used to always have a sing-song, because his mum and his sister lived with my mum.
Okay.
Aunt Nell and Violet, cousin Violet, that was his sister. And of course he came home, and we had all the upset that he was gone while they were there.
Yeah.
But she did go into Buckingham Palace, but she said that's not brought my son back.
Yeah.
But, so they had a hard time.
Yeah.
Because they lost Lenny, not just Lenny. Oh, I don't know. Ali was his wife's name.
Yeah.
I can't think.
It's okay.
No. Lenny. No, Lenny.
It'll come back.
No. But anyway, I can't think of. Was there anything I was going to just add to that?
There was one more thing I wanted to ask you, and then we can finish out. It sounds like you're worried about other people.
No. I'm thinking of Gillian having to see her and not having anything to say.
So, the war's finished. But when did you two meet? I'd love to hear the story of how you met.
Oh.
Dancing.
Down at Blake Hall. That was the half a crown, 2 and 6pence hop. Saturday
I'm
night.
going to ask that lovely sailor to have a dance.
And where was this?
Blake Hall in Bridgewater.
In Bridgewater.
On a Saturday night at the dance. from street, cycled from street to come and see me.
12 miles.
And he soon got round my mother to sleep in the
Me and Sarah were like that.
and then he never bothered to write to me after that. And I thought, well, God. And when I went to the dance at Christmas, he was on leave again. And I've not got rid of him since.
Okay, so you just went quiet for a while. You didn't.
Oh yeah. Well, I didn't know, but he was only 18 at the time.
Misleading you.
Been lovely with it.
Must have been, I suppose. Could tell me a tale.
So then you got married whilst you were still in service.
Oh yeah.
That's
I had 5
another
years
story,
to do.
our wedding. Another story.
They begged me to sign on. I finished up at Admiralty, and they begged me to sign on, and I said to Violet, shall I sign on to do the full term, get a pension? She said, well, when we married, you had 5 years to do. I said, okay, I get the message.
I know. I said I'd wait for that time, but I wasn't in for that. I insisted on not having any children. I couldn't afford to live with mum. Did you ever see the house my mum lived in?
No.
I couldn't afford to be living there without any money and bloody kid. Anyway, I worked hard and done all the saving, didn't I? In the first 5 years, I'd done all the saving, and I saved a lot of money and got us going straight.
Good.
So it all worked out nice.
Gramps was away a lot then at that time, was he?
Well, we were married. We got married very quick, and it was a very cheap wedding, believe me. And so that we could have £2, 4 and 6pence a week marriage allowance that would be saved.
Ah.
And Grandpa gave an extra £1 up out of your money, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
That went with it, so that he was like, and I not only saved the money, but I bought lots of things for the home. Then he went away 6 weeks after we were married for a year.
Wow.
Yeah, and he came home and he was here for another year, and he come home one day and he said that he's been given a Far Eastern trip, which is going to be 2.5 years abroad. This is what they had then. And when he came home another day, he said, there's a chap there who wants to go to the Far East and he doesn't want to go to...
No, he didn't want to go to the Persian Gulf.
He didn't want to go to the Persian Gulf, but he would swap with Ray and do 2.5 years abroad, and Ray would do only 18 months
in Persian Gulf.
Okay.
And so that's what he done. And before he actually sailed, they'd brought in a new rule: nobody had to do more than 18 months. So he had to do the Far Eastern one because he told the chap he would do it. But that was a lot. Then when you come home, you only had about a year to do it, didn't you?
Yeah.
And then you were free.
Sent me to Admiralty.
But
I was on a radio teleprinter.
so we worked it right. It worked out right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got one last question. It's a quick one. All the stories you've been telling me, I mean, thank you. Amazing stories to hear. Everything that happened. If you were going to say something or that one piece of advice to someone who's growing up now, completely different time, but the things that you learned through those times, what would you give as a bit of advice?
I would say learn a little about money, because the thing that I regretted most when I was doing all this saving, his dad told us to go to the Lloyd's Bank, so I done, what the father-in-law wanted. And I never understood that I was getting the cheapest, the lowest rate going by doing it through a bank. And I didn't understand about building societies and the money you could get a lot more.
Okay.
So I would put that,
Finance. Yeah.
I would put that at the top. I would put that at the top. I saved a lot of money, 500 quid I saved a lot. Gillian worked it out and it was thousands. What I'd work. Mind you, the first time when we come back, we'd had nothing for our wedding or anything. And we had this money. I had just over £200, which was a lot of money then for a year.
Yeah.
And we just had a good time and we spent it. And I came back that year to start all afresh because we'd spent the money. But we kept the other money for doing what was right, getting the place together.
The essentials. Yeah.
But that was one of the main things. I think money is a big thing. Money is a big thing. But I do think at times I've put it to the fore too many times. There's a balance to get.
It was about having a good time but saving money as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good advice.
But you could think of lots of things in your life that you wish you'd done different.
I'd say read a lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Learn a lot of
Oh,
things.
I learned a lot from him because we never had books when we were home. My mum didn't have the money to buy books. So I've learned a lot because we always bought books.
When I went street library in street, now Clark's,
I've got to go again.
yeah,
All right.
the village was Clark's village, all right? And
Right.
we had an excellent library there. And they built a swimming pool too, a Lido. And I jumped off the top board there when I was 6 when it opened. And I jumped off the top board when I was 6. Couldn't swim.
Okay.
I quickly learned.
Doggy paddle.
Anyway, I went to the library one day. Somebody said about the library, and I went in. I don't know what it was. I think I'd read something in one of the kids. There used to be some papers, comic books, Adventure, Wizard. There was 4. Hotspur was another one, but they were all written stories, not pictures,
Yes.
not comic strips.
Yeah.
They were all written stories, and Jeff Badman, a chap who lived 2 or 3 doors down from us in the street, he was about 3 or 4 years older than me, and he'd have these papers, these comics, and give them to me when he'd finished them. So I read avidly
Yes.
all these stories, and I read something in there, and I went to the library to check something out. I think it was John Buchan book or something like that. And I went to check something, and the librarian said something, and I said, "How much does it cost to be a member of the library?" She said, "It was a free library." I said, "And I can take a book out?" She said, "Yes, for 3 weeks." I said, or 2 weeks, I think it was, 2 weeks. She said, "You can have up to 3 books." I said, "For nothing?" She said, "Yeah." So I took full advantage of that, and I read avidly. So I learned an awful lot, really.
Yeah. That's
But
great.
it wasn't just comic stories and things. I read all the Arthur Ransom books. It's all about sailing and bird watching and things like that.
Is that the lot, Robin?
Say again.
Is there anything else?
I think we can finish up, but if you just take a seat for 1 second, I'll yeah, we can just finish up like final thoughts.
Yeah. It's all right.
Or did you not want to sit down anymore?
That's all right.
Well, we can stay there. That's
No,
fine.
done. Go on.
So I think you were just saying you finished you're reading books. So the advice is be sensible with your money and read lots. That's
Yeah,
the advice
yeah.
that you'd give.
Yeah.
Expand your knowledge base.
Yeah.
Well,
I think life, you learn it as you go along. But that was the thing that I really regretted.
And do cryptic crosswords.
But that was his dad said.
Yeah.
I think their dad just wanted to be sure that I would save the money. Because Londoners didn't have a very good name, did they?
Who?
But anyway, I saved it. We
Yeah.
really and truly.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I bought lots and lots of stuff. And I bought the best stuff. I'm still using the saucepans I bought then, and they're 70. Well, he uses them to boil beetroot. They were the dearest ones going. It's,
how much? Like how many years ago was that? 70 something years
I
ago.
can't remember how much.
Oh no, but you said it was 70.
I can't remember how much they cost, but they were the best. So it was
We've got sheets. And when did you buy those sheets that we've never used?
Yeah, I've still got sheets there.
Still wrapped in cellophane.
Like baking sheets.
No, bed sheets.
Oh, bed sheets.
Oh, bed sheets.
Actually, they were being much. It so happens Jacqueline's got I put them on the bed we got, a double bed, but they were for big, what they call king size beds.
Yeah, king size beds.
So it's only about the last month I give them to Jacqueline because she said she's got a king size bed, and she was saying I've got to go and buy sheets, and I said, what sheets? She said, I said king size. Hang on, and I found two pairs of sheets there, so they weren't wasted. But one things, all these things, all the time, all when I was at work, we'd buy towels, because when you were thought, once you're pensioners, you're not going to have your money. Of course, things change because you've got all these pensions, but they had a pension from work, and I only had a small one because it was late starting, but it all helps.
Yeah, it does.
I'll tell you a funny one. I was in Aden.
Do you mind if I go on out to Gillian now?
Yeah, I mean we can finish up, but if you want to finish if you want to tell a story there. But go.
Yeah.
Thank you though. Thanks for sharing your stories.
It's rather nice to know that you're interested, Kelly.
I was in Aden. I wanted a new towel.
Okay.
And I went in this souk.
I'm sat.
Give
I'm
you a hand
awkward.
up.
I'm awkward.
All right.
Okay, you got your balance?
That's it. Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Nana.
And I went in this souk, and he was trying to flog
Where is this? In
Aden.
In Aden. Where's that?
Yemen.
Yemen. Okay.
Yeah, the main port of Yemen, and he was flapping this towel, and I looked at the label. I said, "This is Turkish." He said, "Oh, best Turkish." I said, "Oh, I don't want that. I want English," and I walked out in disgust because I couldn't buy an English towel. And then I realised much later, that all our towels were Egyptian or Turkish. It never occurred to me they weren't English.
So you're actually getting a good deal.
I didn't buy it, no.
Right, great.
I waited till I don't know where I got it from. I'll replace it somewhere. Dar es Salaam or so.
I should probably stop recording now, so otherwise people are going to find us boring. But thank you.
Mother's getting itchy.
Yeah.
Right, that's a wrap on another episode. Once again, a big thank you to Nana and Gramps for spending their time with me, sharing their stories of a completely different time. Happy birthday once again, Nana. I hope that you're enjoying your day. I'm sure you're probably not listening to the podcast as your birthday treat. I'm sure there's plenty of cake eating and family partying with that is going on. And thank you again, everyone still listening. Once again, if you enjoyed this episode and if you've been enjoying episodes in the past, then give us a follow, auto download, give us a nice review, or send with a friend. There's all of those options. You could do any one of those and you would absolutely make my day. Right. Speaking of the day, I should probably get on with it now. I've got some adventures ahead of me. In a couple of days' time, I am going to be heading back over to the Eastern Cape to a new area. It is the fallow deer rut. For those of you who don't know what the term rut means, it is the mating season, which means that fallow deer, which are actually a non-native species in South Africa, are going to be breeding like crazy. The males will be strutting around, losing their minds, making this fantastic noise, which is called croaking. So the wilderness will be filled with a wild sound that is just like this bassy, extreme noise. I'm excited. It's the first time I've ever been out there, so I'm looking forward to getting out and experiencing this kind of annual phenomenon as it happens. But that's enough waffling from me. Thanks for listening, and until next time.
Welcome to the Wild Dispatch.